At 5:47 a.m., Isaiah Thompson shuffled into his kitchen and froze. The most feared woman in corporate America was standing at his stove wearing his old Morehouse t-shirt and smiling at his daughter. If this story resonated with you, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Isaiah Thompson woke to the sound of retching at 4:51 a.m. Before his eyes were fully open, his 8-year-old daughter Amara was already curled against his chest, burning hot and whimpering. "Daddy, my tummy hurts bad." Those 5 words erased any hope of sleep. Isaiah carried her to the bathroom, one large hand cradling the back of her head while she emptied what little was left in her stomach. The nightlight shaped like a crescent moon cast soft gold across her brown skin and the tiny cornrows he'd spent 2 hours braiding the night before. By 5:15 he had changed her sheets, started a load of laundry, and was staring into a fridge that held 4 eggs, half a carton of oat milk past its date, and a single slice of cheese sweating in plastic. His phone buzzed on the counter. The security company he worked nights for had canceled his weekend overtime. Again. Rent was due in 8 days. Daycare still hadn't been paid for last month. He pressed his forehead against the cool refrigerator door and whispered the same quiet promise he made every morning. "I got us, baby girl. Always." 43 floors above Midtown Atlanta, in a penthouse that looked like it belonged in a museum, Naomi Vanderbilt stood at her marble island slicing a single perfect strawberry with surgical precision. She wore a charcoal suit tailored so sharply it could draw blood, Louboutins still in their dust bags because she hadn't decided which pair intimidated board members the most today. Her phone vibrated against the counter. "Tokyo's on the line," her assistant's voice crackled. "Put them through," Naomi said, voice smooth and lethal. "And tell them if they don't accept the new valuation in the next 90 minutes, we'll acquire their biggest competitor by lunch and bury them by dinner." She ended the call, took one bite of the strawberry and threw the rest away. Flavor was irrelevant. The ritual was control. At 5:47 a.m. her driver texted that a jackknife truck had shut down the downtown connector. Naomi stared at the message for exactly 3 seconds, grabbed the keys to the Aston Martin she never drove herself and left. Isaiah never saw the silver Aston Martin fishtail on the rain-slicked street outside his complex. He was too busy coaxing Amara into a fresh t-shirt while she clutched her stuffed elephant and asked for pancakes they didn't have. He was scrambling eggs with one hand and Googling urgent care open early Atlanta, with the other when the knock came, 3 commanding raps that sounded expensive. Isaiah wiped his hands on a dish towel and opened the door just enough to see a woman drenched to the bone, mascara running in perfect streaks down cheekbones that belonged on billboards. Her cream silk blouse clung to her like a second skin. Beneath it, the lace of a bra that probably cost more than his rent. She was shaking, but her spine was straight as steel. "My car spun out 2 blocks over," she said, teeth chattering. "I saw your light on. May I please use your phone?" Isaiah's first instinct was caution. Nobody who looked like her ended up in his neighborhood by accident at 6 in the morning. His second instinct was the rain. It was coming down in sheets. He unhooked the chain. "Come in before you freeze." She stepped inside, dripping on the linoleum he'd mopped just last night. The apartment smelled like eggs, Vicks Vapor Rub, and the coconut oil he used on Amara's scalp. It was small, lived in, warm in a way her penthouse had never been. Isaiah handed her the only clean towel left, one with a giant smiling avocado on it that Amara had picked out at Target. Naomi took it without comment. "Your phone?" she asked. He nodded toward the counter where his cracked iPhone 12 sat next to an overdue electric bill. Passcode 0317. Her birthday. Naomi's fingers paused over the numbers. She dialed, gave clipped instructions to someone on the other end, then set the phone down like it was radioactive. "My driver will be here in 20 minutes, she said. "I'll wait on the porch." "You'll do no such thing," Isaiah replied before his brain caught up with his mouth. "It's a monsoon out there. Sit." He turned back to the stove, suddenly aware of the pile of Amara's artwork held to the fridge with alphabet magnets, the laundry basket overflowing with tiny socks, the fact that he was wearing gray sweatpants with a hole right at the thigh. Naomi remained standing. Amara peeked around the couch, elephant dangling from one hand. She studied the stranger for a long moment, then patted over in her unicorn slippers. "You're cold," she announced. "Daddy, give her your Morehouse shirt. It's the softest." Isaiah almost choked. "Mara, baby, I'm wearing a shirt. The big one on the chair." She pointed to the faded black Morehouse t-shirt draped over the dining chair. The one he'd worn to every homecoming, every graduation, every funeral. The one that still smelled faintly of his mother's hug. Naomi's eyes tracked the exchange. Something flickered across her face, too fast to name. Amara was already dragging the shirt off the chair and holding it up like a prize. Here. It makes everything better. Naomi looked down at the child, then at the shirt, then at Isaiah, who stood there holding a spatula like a weapon, clearly out of his depth. Slowly, almost reverently, she took it. In the narrow bathroom with the flickering bulb, Naomi peeled off her ruined blouse and pulled Isaiah's t-shirt over her head. It swallowed her whole, the hem brushing mid-thigh. The cotton was butter-soft from 1,000 washes and carried the faint scent of cedar, coffee, and something achingly safe. When she caught her reflection, she looked human. She opened the door. Isaiah turned from the stove, and the spatula slipped from his fingers, clattering to the floor. Naomi stood in the doorway wearing his 20-year-old college shirt like it had been designed for her, barefoot, hair dripping, eyes wide and unguarded for the first time in a decade. Amara grinned from the couch. "See, Daddy? Told you it makes everything better." Naomi's voice came out small, almost lost under the hum of the old refrigerator. "She just called me Mommy, while I was changing," she whispered. She said, "Mommy, you look pretty in Daddy's shirt." Isaiah couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Outside, thunder rolled like the sky itself had something to say. The kitchen went still except for the rain hammering the window like it wanted in. Isaiah's spatula lay on the linoleum, forgotten. The eggs hissed angrily in the pan behind him, already turning brown at the edges. Naomi stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself inside the oversized Morehouse shirt, looking suddenly small. She said it twice. Naomi continued, voice barely holding together. "First when I opened the door to come out, then again when she saw me looking in the mirror. Clear as day. Mommy, come eat." Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Isaiah finally found his legs. He stepped forward, slow, like approaching a spooked deer. "Amara, baby," he called softly without breaking eye contact with Naomi, "come here for a second." Amara padded over, elephant dragging behind her. She looked up at Naomi with those huge brown eyes that had talked Isaiah out of every bad mood for 8 years. "Sweetheart," he crouched to her level, "this is Miss Naomi. She's a friend. She got caught in the rain." "She's not." "But she's wearing your shirt," Amara interrupted, confused. "You only let people you love wear the Morehouse shirt. You told Grandma that." Isaiah felt the air leave his lungs. He had said that. At his mother's funeral. While crying into that exact shirt. Naomi's eyes glistened. She knelt too, bringing herself eye level with the little girl. "Amara," she said gently, "I'm not your mommy. Your daddy is taking real good care of you all by himself. I just borrowed his shirt because mine got wet." "Okay." Amara studied her for a long moment, head tilted. Then she reached out and touched Naomi's cheek with sticky fingers. "You look like the picture Daddy keeps in his wallet," she said matter-of-factly. "The one he kisses when he thinks I'm sleeping." Isaiah's heart stopped beating. Actually stopped. Naomi's gaze snapped to him, sharp and searching. He couldn't hold it. He looked away, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. The silence stretched, thick and dangerous. Naomi stood slowly, folding her arms across her chest like armor. "Isaiah," she said, voice low, "who do I look like?" He swallowed. The words were lodged in his throat like broken glass. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed on the counter. Her driver, probably. Real life clawing its way back in. Naomi glanced at the screen, then back at him. Something shifted in her face, curiosity warring with the need to flee. "Show me," she said. It wasn't a request. Isaiah hesitated, then pulled out his wallet with hands that didn't feel like his own. Tucked behind his debit card was a photograph he hadn't looked at in daylight in 5 years. He slid it out. Naomi took it with careful fingers. The woman in the picture was laughing on a beach at sunset, arms flung wide, curls flying in the wind. Same cheekbones. Same eyes. Same radiant smile. Naomi's breath hitched. The photograph trembled in her grip. "That's Lauren," Isaiah said, voice rough. "Amara's mother. She passed when Amara was 6 weeks old. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light." Naomi stared at the photo like it might bite her. "I could be her sister," she whispered. "Jesus Christ, I could be her twin." Isaiah gave a broken laugh that held no humor. "I noticed the second you walked in. Thought I was seeing a ghost." Amara, sensing the shift in the room, crawled into Isaiah's arms and buried her face in his neck. He held her tight, rocking slightly, the way he'd done every night for 8 years when the nightmares came. Naomi couldn't look away from the photograph. I have a birthmark, she said suddenly, voice cracking. Right here. She touched the spot just above her left collarbone, hidden now beneath the Morehouse cotton. Shaped like a crescent moon. My mother always said it was ugly. I've lasered it twice, but it keeps coming back. Isaiah went very, very still. Slowly he shifted Amara to his hip and reached out. With one trembling finger, he tugged the collar of the t-shirt just enough to reveal smooth brown skin, and there it was. A perfect crescent moon. Naomi made a sound, half sob, half laugh, and stumbled back against the counter. The room spun. Outside, a horn blared, her driver, impatient. Naomi looked at the door, then at the little girl clinging to Isaiah's neck, then at the man whose eyes were shining with tears he refused to let fall. I have to go, she said, but her feet didn't move. Isaiah's voice was raw. You don't owe us anything. I know this is insane. I know. I don't know what this is, she cut in, shaking her head. But I can't just walk away. Not after. She gestured helplessly at the photo, at Amara, at the shirt swallowing her frame. Amara lifted her head. Are you coming back? She asked Naomi plainly. Because Daddy's eggs are burning and you didn't eat yet. Naomi let out a wet laugh that sounded like surrender. Isaiah turned off the burner with shaking hands. The smell of scorched eggs filled the tiny kitchen. Naomi took one step forward, then another, until she was close enough to touch them both. She didn't. But she wanted to. Give me your number, she said quietly. Please. Isaiah stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. As she typed her private cell into his cracked phone, her real number, the one only 3 people on Earth had, her driver honked again, longer this time. Naomi handed the phone back. Their fingers brushed. Neither pulled away. I don't know what any of this means, she whispered. But I'm not walking out that door and pretending today never happened. Thunder crashed overhead like approval. She looked at Amara one last time, then at Isaiah, and the words slipped out before she could stop them. I've never believed in signs. Until right now. Then she was gone, the door closing softly behind her, leaving Isaiah standing in his tiny kitchen holding his daughter and feeling, for the first time in 8 years, like the universe might not be finished with him yet. The door shut behind Naomi with the finality of a judge's gavel. Isaiah stood frozen in the middle of the kitchen, Amara's arms tight around his neck, the smell of burned eggs thick in the air. His phone buzzed in his hand, her name glowing on the screen. Naomi V. Just those 2 letters and a period. Like she was already trying to keep distance. He stared at it until the screen went black. Amara pulled back, cupping his face with her small hands. Daddy, why are you crying? He hadn't realized he was. He wiped his eyes roughly with the heel of his hand. I'm not, baby. Just smoke from the pan. She didn't look convinced, but she let it go. Across town, Naomi sat in the back of her Maybach, soaked Morehouse t-shirt hidden beneath a trench coat her driver had waiting. She stared straight ahead, knuckles white around Isaiah's photograph that she had not given back. Her driver glanced in the rear view. Everything all right, Miss Vanderbilt? Take me home, she said, voice flat. Then call Dr. Ellis. Tell him it's urgent. She spent the rest of the ride building walls. Brick by brick. By the time the elevator opened into her penthouse, the Ice Queen was fully reassembled, hair twisted into a severe knot, makeup repaired, expression carved from marble. She dropped the photograph into a drawer and slammed it shut like burying evidence. Her assistant met her with an iPad and a triple espresso. Tokyo folded. New terms accepted. Board wants you in the room at 9 for the Meridian vote. Naomi nodded once. Burn the shirt. Excuse me? The one I'm wearing underneath. Burn it. The assistant opened her mouth, thought better of it, and disappeared. Naomi didn't sit. She stood at the window and watched the city crawl to life 43 floors below, arms wrapped around herself like she could hold the morning out. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Isaiah. Amara asked if the pretty angel is coming back for pancakes tomorrow. I told her angels are busy. Thank you for today. For being kind to her. I deleted your number after you left. Didn't feel right to keep it. Naomi stared at the message until the words blurred. Then she blocked the number, set the phone face down, and walked into the boardroom without looking back. Isaiah lasted exactly 4 hours. By noon he was at the hospital for his EMT shift, moving on autopilot, splinting wrists, calming overdose patients, wiping someone else's blood off his hands. Every time he reached for his phone to check on Amara at daycare, he saw the empty space where Naomi's contact had never actually been saved. He told himself it was for the best. She was a hurricane in human form. He was a single dad with $47 in his checking account and a stack of overdue notices. Worlds didn't just collide, they shattered. At 3:17 p.m., the exact minute Amara had been born 8 years ago, he caved. He unblocked the only outgoing call in his recent list, the one made from his phone that morning, and stared at the number like it might burn him. He typed 3 different messages and deleted them all. Finally. Isaiah, Elite. I didn't delete it. I'm sorry if this is over the line. Amara hasn't stopped talking about you. Neither have I. He hit send, then immediately threw the phone into his locker like it was radioactive. Naomi was in the middle of eviscerating a VP who'd missed projections when her watch vibrated. She ignored it. It vibrated again. And again. She excused herself from the conference room, heels clicking like gunshots down the hall. Unknown number. She read the text once. Twice. Her thumb hovered over block. Instead, she saved the contact as "Do Not Answer" and shoved the phone into her pocket. That night Isaiah put Amara to bed with an extra story, an extra song, an extra prayer that tomorrow would feel less like the earth had tilted. Amara fell asleep clutching the stuffed elephant and whispering, "Tell the angel I saved her a seat at breakfast." Isaiah sat on the edge of her bed long after she was out, head in his hands. His phone stayed silent. At 2:14 a.m. Naomi stood in her walk-in closet in silk pajamas that cost more than Isaiah's monthly salary, holding the Morehouse t-shirt she had rescued from the incinerator bag. She brought it to her face and inhaled, cedar, coffee, little girl sweetness, and something that made her chest cave in. She typed, "Do not answer, this was a mistake. Please do not contact me again. I'm sorry." She hit send, then threw the phone across the room so hard the screen cracked. Then she crawled into her cold, enormous bed and cried for the first time since she was 12 years old, silent, furious tears that soaked the Egyptian cotton and tasted like shame. Isaiah's phone lit up on the nightstand. He read the message 6 times. Each one carved deeper. He typed back slowly, deliberately. "Isaiah, understood. I'm sorry too. Take care of yourself, Naomi." He didn't block her. He simply turned the phone face down and went to sit on the porch in the dark, letting the Georgia night press down on him until he couldn't feel anything at all. 2 people. 2 different zip codes. 2 hearts slamming every door they could find. Neither slept. 3 days later, Atlanta decided to punish them both. A late spring storm slammed into the city just after lunch. Tornado watch sirens, flash flood warnings, power lines snapping like twigs. Schools closed early. Roads turned into rivers. Cell towers flickered and died. Isaiah got the call at 1:47 p.m. while on a 911 run. "Mr. Thompson, this is Bright Horizons Daycare. We're evacuating to higher ground. We can't reach Amara's emergency contacts after you. Can you get here?" He was already running, lights and sirens screaming through flooded streets. By the time he skidded into the parking lot, the building was dark, generators failing, teachers herding crying children onto yellow buses in ankle-deep water. Amara spotted him through the rain and launched herself into his arms, soaking both of them instantly. "Daddy," the lights went out and everybody was scared. "I've got you, baby. I've got you." They were the last parent-child pair left. The final bus had just pulled away. Every major road north was underwater or blocked by fallen trees. His apartment complex had already posted evacuation notices on social media. Isaiah stood in the empty parking lot, rain plastering Amara's braids to her cheeks, and realized they had nowhere to go. Naomi, meanwhile, was trapped in her own tower. The Meridian merger vote had turned into a circus the moment the power grid failed downtown. Elevators frozen between floors. Emergency lighting strobing red. Board members panicking like the building was the Titanic. Her security team wanted to move her to a hotel with backup generators, but every route out of the city was gridlocked. The helicopters on the roof couldn't fly in 70-mile-an-hour winds. She stood at the emergency stairwell door on the 43rd floor, phone dead, heels in one hand, watching rain lash the windows sideways, when her head of security made the call. "Ma'am, we have one option. There's a Red Cross shelter that just opened 10 minutes south, higher ground, full power, National Guard on site. Motorcade can get us there in 20 if we leave now." Naomi opened her mouth to refuse, she didn't do shelters, but thunder shook the building so hard the glass vibrated. She thought of a little girl who believed angels wore Morehouse t-shirts. "Fine," she said. "Let's move." 23 minutes later, 2 black SUVs rolled up to the old gymnasium of Cascade Heights Community Center. The parking lot was a sea of regular cars. No motorcade had ever looked more out of place. Naomi stepped out and borrowed scrubs from the corporate nurse, her suit ruined by the stair descent, hair in a messy knot, face stripped of makeup. She looked almost normal. Inside the gym, cots lined the basketball court. Kids ran wild. Someone's uncle was grilling hot dogs on a camp stove. The air smelled like wet sneakers and hope. Isaiah sat on a bottom bleacher, Amara asleep against his chest wrapped in his EMT jacket. He was humming softly, rocking her the way he did when storms used to scare her at 2 years old. Naomi saw them before they saw her. For one heartbeat the noise of the shelter disappeared. There was only the sound of her pulse in her ears and the sight of Isaiah's broad shoulders curved protectively around his daughter. He looked up. Their eyes locked across 30 feet of chaos. Isaiah's face went through a dozen emotions in 2 seconds. Shock, pain, resignation, and something softer he couldn't hide. Naomi walked over like she was approaching a live wire. "Hi," she said, voice almost lost under the roar of the storm outside. Isaiah stood slowly, shifting Amara so she wouldn't wake. "Hey." An awkward beat. "I didn't know this was your shelter," she said. "I didn't know shelters were by invitation," he answered, not quite a joke. Naomi's lips twitched despite herself. "How is she?" "Scared of thunder. But she's okay now." Another silence. The kind that could swallow you whole. Amara stirred, lifted her head, blinked sleepily and saw Naomi. Her entire face lit up like sunrise. "Miss Naomi?" She wriggled down and ran, bare feet slapping the gym floor, crashing into Naomi's legs with the force of a cannonball. Naomi caught her automatically, hands finding Amara's back. The little girl smelled like rain and grape juice and home. "You came." Amara squealed. "Daddy said the roads were closed but you came anyway." Naomi's eyes flicked to Isaiah. He looked as stunned as she felt. "I got stuck too," Naomi managed. Amara grabbed her hand. "Come sit with us. We saved you a cot. Daddy said if you showed up we had to share our blankets because you get cold easy." Isaiah rubbed the back of his neck. "I didn't think you actually would show up." The storm chose that moment to knock the power out again. The gym plunged into darkness for 5 long seconds before the generator kicked back in. In the flicker, Naomi saw it. 2 folded blankets, 3 bottled waters and a small empty space on the cot right next to Isaiah, like he'd been holding it open against all logic. Amara tugged her forward. "Come on, Miss Naomi. The thunder can't get us if we stick together." Naomi let herself be pulled. She sat on the narrow cot, Amara climbing instantly into her lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. Isaiah sat beside them, close enough that their knees touched. Neither moved away. Outside, the storm raged harder. Inside, 3 people who had spent 3 days slamming doors suddenly had no choice but to share the same 6 feet of space until morning. Naomi looked at Isaiah over Amara's braids. "Truce," she whispered. He exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for days. "Truce." Amara snuggled deeper into Naomi's arms and sighed. "Told you angels find you when you need them." Neither adult argued. For the first time in years, the Ice Queen let someone else hold part of her weight. And Isaiah, exhausted, terrified Isaiah, let himself lean just a little into the warmth of the woman wearing his old college shirt in her heart even if she wasn't wearing it on her body tonight. The storm wasn't finished with Atlanta. But for now the 3 of them were exactly where they were supposed to be. Bridge. Neither adult had slept. Every time one of them shifted, the other froze, afraid to break whatever fragile peace had settled over them. Naomi stared at the dark ceiling. Isaiah stared at Naomi. Finally he spoke, voice barely louder than the storm. "You asked me once who you looked like." Naomi's throat worked. "I remember." He reached slowly into the pocket of his EMT jacket, still draped over Amara, and pulled out the photograph he'd carried for 8 years. The emergency lighting painted it crimson. Naomi took it with careful fingers as if it might disintegrate. "That's Lauren at Tybee Island," Isaiah whispered. 3 months before she found out she was pregnant with Amara. She was 26. Full of plans. She wanted to open a dance studio for little black girls who couldn't afford lessons. She had this laugh. His voice cracked. You could hear it across rooms. Across years, apparently. Naomi traced the smile in the photo with her thumb. "I never laugh like that." The gymnasium lights dimmed to emergency red at 10:17 p.m. so the children could sleep. Hundreds of people breathed in the same rhythm. Soft snores, the occasional cough, the steady drum of rain on the metal roof. Isaiah, Naomi, and Amara shared one narrow cot pushed against the wall. Amara lay in the middle, finally asleep, her head on Naomi's arm and her feet across Isaiah's lap like a living. "You could," he said so quietly she almost missed it. She handed the photo back like it burned. "Isaiah." That birthmark. The crescent moon. My mother used to say only witches had marks like that. She tried to scrub it off with bleach when I was 7. Her voice was flat, clinical, the way she talked about quarterly losses. I was adopted. Sealed records. I hired 3 private investigators over the years. Nothing. I stopped looking. Isaiah went very still. Naomi kept talking, words spilling now like the storm had cracked her open. I was born March 17, 1991. Piedmont Hospital. That's all the agency would ever give me. My adoptive parents were cold. Success was the only love language they spoke. Feelings were inefficient. She gave a brittle laugh. I became very efficient. Isaiah's hand found hers in the dark, fingers threading without asking permission. She let him. I built everything, she continued, so no one could ever leave me again. Companies don't walk away if you own enough of them. Money doesn't die in car accidents. Her voice finally broke. But seeing Amara, holding her, I felt something I don't have a name for. And it terrifies me. Isaiah turned her hand over, tracing the faint scar on her wrist, an old burn mark shaped like the heel of a stiletto. Lauren had that scar, he said hoarsely. From her mother. Same place. Naomi's breath stopped. He reached into his wallet again and pulled out a second photograph, this one smaller, creased down the middle. A newborn wrapped in a hospital blanket, eyes squeezed shut, tiny fist against her cheek. On the white band around the wrist, baby girl Vaughn, March 17, 91. Naomi made a sound like she'd been punched. I kept it, Isaiah said. Lauren's mother gave it to me after the funeral. Said the hospital mixed up the tags or something. Happens sometimes with adoptees. She wanted me to have every piece of Lauren she could give. Naomi stared at the wristband until the letters blurred. I don't understand, she whispered. If we're... Isaiah shook his head. I don't either. But I know what I feel when Amara looks at you. I know what I felt when you walked in wearing my shirt like you'd always belonged in it. Naomi turned to him fully, careful not to wake Amara. Tears tracked silently down her cheeks, hot, foreign things she didn't know how to stop. I spent 34 years making sure no one could hurt me, she said. And in one morning a 6-year-old little girl and her father destroyed every wall I had. I don't know how to be soft, Isaiah. I only know how to win. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles once, gentle, reverent. Then let me teach you how to be loved, he said against her skin. Because Amara already decided you're hers. And I'm not strong enough to fight what this feels like anymore. Naomi closed her eyes. A sob escaped, small, shattered, real. She leaned forward until her forehead rested against his. Their noses brushed. Amara sighed in her sleep and burrowed closer to both of them. I'm scared, Naomi admitted into the inch of space between their lips. Me too, Isaiah answered. But I've been scared since the day she was born. And I'm still here. We're still here. For a long time, they simply breathed together, 3 heartbeats finding the same rhythm under a red emergency light while the storm spent itself outside. Eventually Naomi spoke again, voice raw. If this is real, if I'm somehow part of her, of you, I don't know how to do this. Isaiah smiled in the dark, the first real smile in days. You already started. You're wearing an avocado towel in your heart right now. She huffed a wet laugh that sounded almost like Lauren's. Amara stirred, mumbling in her sleep. Mommy, don't go. Naomi's entire body went rigid, then melted. She pressed her lips to the top of Amara's braids, tasting salt and rain and little girl sweetness. I'm not going anywhere, she whispered. Not this time. Isaiah wrapped his arm around both of them, pulling them close. The cot was too small, the night was too big, and none of it mattered. Outside, the rain softened to a lullaby. Inside, secrets that had stayed buried for 34 years cracked open like seeds finally given sunlight. And for the first time in either of their lives, terror and hope weighed exactly the same. The storm broke just before dawn. A thin blade of pale gold slid through the gym's high windows, painting the sleeping city of cots in soft peach and rose. Somewhere a baby cooed. Someone's grandfather started humming an old Sam Cooke song. The world felt brand new. Amara woke first. She blinked up at Naomi, then at Isaiah, then back at Naomi, like she was making sure the night hadn't been a dream. Morning, Miss Naomi, she whispered, loud enough to be heard across 3 states. Naomi's heart flipped. Morning, baby. Amara grinned so big her dimples swallowed her face. You stayed. I stayed. Isaiah stirred, stretching carefully on the narrow cot. His arm had been asleep for hours under Naomi's neck, but he hadn't moved once. He met Naomi's eyes over Amara's head and smiled, small, sleepy, and devastatingly real. "Coffee," he croaked. "There's gotta be coffee somewhere or I'm not surviving this day." They found it in the kitchen annex. National Guard brew so strong it could wake the dead. Isaiah poured 3 cups, 2 normal, 1 mostly milk and sugar with a splash of coffee for Amara. Naomi watched him doctor the child's cup with the same tenderness he used to check her temperature at 3 a.m., and something inside her chest cracked wide open. They took their styrofoam cups to the bleachers. The gym was waking up slowly, families folding blankets, volunteers passing out cereal bars and juice boxes. But their little corner felt like its own universe. Amara climbed into Naomi's lap like she'd been doing it forever. "Daddy says when the power comes back we can go home and make real pancakes. With faces. Chocolate chip smiles." Naomi raised an eyebrow at Isaiah. "You can cook." He laughed, the first full laugh she'd ever heard from him. Deep, warm, a little raspy from lack of sleep. It lit up the entire gym. "I can do 3 things well," he said, counting on his fingers. "Keep my daughter alive, lift heavy patients without hurting my back, and make pancakes that look like minions. Everything else is negotiable." Naomi smiled so hard her face hurt. She couldn't remember the last time she'd smiled before this week. They spent the morning like a family nobody had given permission to exist yet. Isaiah braided Amara's hair while Naomi held the comb and rubber bands, learning the rhythm of parting, oiling, twisting. Her fingers were clumsy at first, CO hands used to signing 8-figure deals, not cornrows, but Amara was patient, directing like a tiny general. "Smaller parts, Miss Naomi. Daddy says neat parts make the ancestors proud." Naomi swallowed a lump the size of Georgia. "I'll do my best for the ancestors." When the braids were done, Amara insisted on doing Naomi's hair next. She produced 2 sparkly butterfly clips from her emergency backpack and clipped back Naomi's edges with solemn ceremony. "There," she declared. "Now you match." Isaiah looked at the woman who terrified Wall Street wearing purple butterfly clips and his heart actually stuttered. Power flickered back on around 10 a.m. Cheers went up across the gym. Phones started charging. Life tried to resume. But none of them moved. They played Uno on the bleachers. Amara cheated shamelessly and both adults let her. Isaiah taught Naomi how to make a paper airplane that actually flew. She folded it with the precision of an engineer and launched it straight into a volunteer's coffee. They laughed until they couldn't breathe. At noon, volunteers served grilled cheese and tomato soup. Isaiah carried 3 trays like a waiter born to it. They sat cross-legged on their cot, passing a single spoon because Amara insisted family shares. Naomi took a bite and almost cried at how good something so simple tasted. Between bites, the conversation turned quiet and real. Isaiah told her about growing up in Bankhead, his mama raising 3 boys on a nurse's aide salary, how Morehouse saved his life with a full ride, how becoming a father at 26 terrified him more than any 911 call ever could. Naomi told him about being the only black girl in elite boarding schools, about learning that money could buy silence but never warmth, about the night she turned 18 and her adoptive parents handed her a trust fund and a plane ticket instead of a hug. Amara listened to both stories with wide eyes, then announced, "You both got sad parts. But now you got us. Sad parts over." Isaiah and Naomi looked at each other across the soup steam and felt the truth of it settle in their bones. Late afternoon sun slanted golden through the windows. Amara had fallen asleep again, curled on Naomi's lap like a kitten. Isaiah reached over and brushed a stray curl from Naomi's face. "I need to say something," he murmured. Naomi's heart stopped. "Okay. I don't know what tomorrow looks like. I don't know how a woman who owns half of Atlanta fits into a 2-bedroom off Cascade Road. But I know I woke up every day for 8 years praying for someone who would love Amara the way she deserves. And then you walked in wearing my old shirt like an answer I didn't know how to ask for." Naomi's eyes filled. "Isaiah, I'm not asking you to fix anything," he continued softly. "I'm just telling you I see you. The real you. Not the headlines. And I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to." She leaned forward until their foreheads touched, Amara's soft breath warm between them. "I've never had a home," Naomi whispered. "Just addresses. But sitting here with you too. I understand the difference for the first time." Isaiah kissed her then, slow, gentle, tasting like tomato soup and coffee and every future they hadn't dared imagine yet. It wasn't fireworks. It was hearth fire. It was coming home. When they pulled apart, Amara sighed in her sleep and smiled like she'd felt it. Outside, the city started putting itself back together. Inside their tiny corner of the gym, 3 hearts stitched themselves into one seamless rhythm. For 12 perfect hours, nothing and no one could touch them. Monday morning came too soon. The shelter emptied at sunrise. Roads were clearing. Power was back. Life demanded its dues. Isaiah loaded Amara into his beat-up Honda, her backpack stuffed with new crayons from a volunteer. Naomi stood beside her Aston Martin, driver holding an umbrella she no longer needed. The space between them was only 10 feet, but it felt like the Grand Canyon. Amara hugged Naomi's legs so hard she almost toppled. "See you soon, right? You promised pancakes with minion faces." Naomi crouched, pressed a kiss to the crown of Amara's braids. "Soon, baby. I promise." Isaiah met Naomi's eyes over the car roof. "Call me when you get home safe." She nodded, throat too tight for words. They drove away in opposite directions. By 9:12 a.m. Naomi was back in her penthouse, freshly showered, armor reforged, charcoal suit, diamonds like ice, face a mask no one could crack. She walked into the executive conference room and demolished 3 VPs before coffee. By 9:45 the first headline hit. Vanderbilt heiress spotted leaving Red Cross shelter in borrowed scrubs. Mystery man and child spark questions. Grainy photos. Naomi hugging Amara. Isaiah's hand on her back. The three of them on the bleachers laughing over Uno cards. By 10:03 the second wave. Who is the secret daughter of America's most private billionaires? Someone had zoomed in on the hospital wristband photo Isaiah had shown her in the dark. Someone else had connected the birthmark, the date, the impossible resemblance. Conspiracy blogs exploded. Stock message boards lit up with rumors that Naomi Vanderbilt had hidden a child for 8 years. Her PR team stormed her office in full hazmat mode. "We need a statement." Hard denial. Say the child belongs to an employee. Say it was charity optics. Whatever it takes. Naomi stared at the photos on the screen. Amara's face blurred just enough to protect her, but not enough. Her own face raw and open in a way the world had never seen. She felt the old panic rising, control slipping through her fingers like water. At 10:27 her adoptive mother called for the first time in 11 months. "Naomi, this is unacceptable. The board is asking questions. Your father's partners think you've lost your mind. And this, now." Naomi's voice came out cold. "It's not your concern. It is when your little ghetto adventure tanks our share price." Click. Naomi hung up. Her hands shook so hard she dropped the phone. Across town, Isaiah walked into the daycare to pick Amara up early for a doctor's follow-up and was met by the director and 2 reporters hiding in the parking lot. "Sir, is it true you've been paid to stage a relationship with Miss Vanderbilt?" Flashbulbs. Amara's terrified cry of, "Daddy?" He scooped her up and ran. By noon his phone was dead from notifications. His supervisor called, "Paid administrative leave pending media distraction." Translation: "You're a liability." He sat in the Honda in an empty Kroger parking lot, Amara asleep in her car seat, and opened the banking app out of habit. $11.47. The world was screaming that the best thing that ever happened to him was a lie. At 12:44 p.m. Naomi's assistant slid a non-disclosure agreement across her desk, thick as a phone book. "Mr. Thompson is here, ma'am." Security escorted him through the service entrance. "He has the child." Naomi walked into the private sitting room on legs that didn't feel like hers. Isaiah stood in the middle of marble and glass that cost more than his entire life, holding Amara like a shield. His eyes were bloodshot. His jaw was granite. Amara took one look at Naomi and burst into tears. "They said you're not real. They said you don't want us." Naomi started toward her, arms open, but Isaiah stepped back. "Don't," he said, voice flat. "Just don't." The room went deadly quiet. Naomi stopped. "Isaiah." "My daughter's face is all over the internet because of you," he said, low and lethal. "My job is gone. People are at my mama's old house trying to dig up dirt. I can't even buy her lunch right now because my cards are frozen from fraud alerts. Tell me how any of this is okay." Naomi's mouth opened. Nothing came out. He kept going, each word a blade. "I knew better. I knew a woman like you doesn't end up with a man like me. But I let myself believe." His voice cracked. He swallowed it. "I let her believe. That was the sin." Amara was sobbing into his neck now, confused and heartbroken. Naomi found her voice. "I can fix this. Give me 24 hours. I'll kill every story I don't want your money," he roared. The sound echoed off the marble like a gunshot. Amara flinched. Isaiah closed his eyes, breathing hard, trying to rein it in. When he opened them again, they were dead. "I want my daughter to stop crying because strangers are calling her a prop. I want to walk down the street without cameras. I want the last 5 days back when she felt safe. He looked at Naomi like she was a stranger. I don't want anything from you ever again. Naomi felt her heart rip clean in half. Isaiah turned toward the door. Amara reached over his shoulder with one desperate hand. Daddy, no. I want Miss Naomi. He kept walking. Naomi took one step forward. Isaiah, please. He paused at the threshold, didn't turn around. You were the first person who ever made me feel like I belonged somewhere, he said to the door. Turns out I was just a headline waiting to happen. Then he was gone. The heavy door closed with a soft click that sounded like the end of the world. Naomi stood alone in the cavernous room, surrounded by wealth that suddenly felt like ash in her mouth. She sank to the floor in her $6,000 suit and cried the way she had the night her adoptive parents left her at boarding school. No sound, no witnesses, just devastation. Upstairs, her PR team drafted the statement. Ms. Vanderbilt has no comment on personal relationships fabricated by the tabloid press. Downstairs, Isaiah drove aimlessly with a heartbroken little girl asking why Miss Naomi didn't love them anymore. The shatter was complete. They were further apart than they had ever been. And both of them, for the first time in days, felt utterly, unbearably alone. Tuesday, 2:13 a.m. Isaiah sat on the floor of Amara's bedroom, back against her bed, watching her sleep. The glow of the night light painted soft moons on her tear-stained cheeks. She had cried herself out hours ago, clutching the stuffed elephant and whispering, I just want Miss Naomi, until her voice gave out. His own eyes were dry now. He'd used up every tear on the drive home. His phone lay cracked on the carpet beside him, screen shattered from when he'd hurled it against the wall after the 15th reporter called. The banking app still showed $11.47. The daycare had left a voicemail. They loved Amara, but for her safety they were pausing enrollment until the media storm passed. He was out of moves. He picked up the phone, opened the photos, and scrolled to the only 3 pictures he had of the shelter morning. Naomi laughing with butterfly clips in her hair, Amara asleep on her lap, the 3 of them making silly faces over Uno cards. He stared until the screen went black. Then he opened a blank text to the number he'd sworn never to use again. His thumbs hovered. Across the city, in a penthouse that felt like a mausoleum, Naomi hadn't moved from the sofa in 18 hours. She still wore yesterday's suit, creased and ruined. Mascara tracks had dried on her cheeks. An untouched bottle of 1942 tequila sat on the marble coffee table beside a stack of tabloids someone had delivered, for approval. Every cover screamed some version of the same lie. Her adoptive mother had called twice more. The board had scheduled an emergency vote on her leadership for Thursday. Her PR team had drafted 4 different public denials. She had signed none of them. On the television, muted, a morning show replayed the shelter footage on loop. Naomi hugging Amara like the child was her own. The ticker underneath read, Billionaire's Secret Family, or Career-Killing Scandal? Naomi picked up the remote and threw it at the screen. Cracked. The picture kept playing. Her phone buzzed on the table, unknown number. She ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. She snatched it up, ready to smash this one too, then saw the preview. Unknown, I hate what I said. I hate that I made you feel like you were something to be ashamed of. I was scared and I lashed out and I hurt you. I'm sorry. Naomi's knees buckled. She sank to the floor. Another text appeared before she could type. Unknown, Amara hasn't stopped crying. She thinks you left because she wasn't good enough. I can't fix that lie for her. Only you can. Naomi's hands shook so hard she could barely hold the phone. She typed with one finger, tears dripping onto the screen. Naomi, I was drafting a statement that would have erased you both from my life forever. I was going to say you were nothing. Because it's what I've always done when someone got close. Cut them out before they could leave. I'm still holding the pen. She hit send, then immediately typed again. Naomi, I don't want to sign it. I don't know how to do this without hurting you more. But I can't sign it. 30 seconds of silence that lasted a lifetime. Isaiah, then don't. Come home, Naomi. We're at the only place the reporters haven't found yet. 1015 Cascade Avenue. Apartment 3B. Doors unlocked. Naomi stared at the address. She knew that building. Old brick, sagging porches, the kind of place her security team would never let her park near. She was already moving. She didn't change. Didn't fix her makeup. Grabbed only her keys and the Morehouse t-shirt she'd worn the first morning, still unwashed, still carrying their scent. She drove herself. No driver. No security. Windows down, city lights streaking across wet cheeks. She parked crooked across 2 spaces and ran up 3 flights of stairs in heels that weren't made for running. The door to 3B was cracked open, a sliver of warm light spilling into the hall. Inside, Isaiah stood in the living room, arms hanging helpless at his sides. Amara was asleep on the couch under his EMT jacket, thumb in her mouth, something she hadn't done since she was 3. Naomi stopped just inside the threshold, breathing like she'd sprinted miles. Isaiah looked at her, really looked. Saw the ruined suit, the red eyes, the woman who had everything and had never looked more broken. "I don't have anything to give you," he said quietly. "No money. No influence. Just a little girl who thinks you hung the moon and a man who's terrified of losing you again." Naomi took one step. Then another. Until she was close enough to touch. "I don't want your money," she whispered, echoing his words from yesterday. "I want Sunday mornings with minion pancakes. I want braiding parties and Uno tournaments where Amara cheats and we let her. I want to fall asleep between you both and wake up knowing I'm home." Isaiah's eyes filled. "I can't promise the world won't keep trying to tear us apart," she continued, voice shaking. "But I can promise I will burn every bridge, sell every share, give every dollar if that's what it takes to keep you both." He reached for her then, slow, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. She crashed into him instead, arms around his neck, face buried in his shoulder, the Morehouse shirt clutched in one fist like a lifeline. Isaiah held her so tightly her feet left the ground. Behind them, Amara stirred on the couch. Her eyes fluttered open, focused on the two adults wrapped around each other in the doorway, and the biggest smile broke across her sleepy face. "See, Daddy?" she murmured. "Angels always come back." Naomi turned in Isaiah's arms, both of them opening the circle to include the little girl who had started it all. Amara ran to them, wedging herself in the middle, arms around both their waists. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Outside, the city kept spinning, reporters, boards, headlines, consequences. Inside apartment 3B, 3 people made a choice louder than any statement ever could. They chose each other. Friday, 7:03 a.m. The first thing Naomi did when the sun came up was call her executive team into the boardroom. She walked in wearing jeans, the Morehouse t-shirt, faded, soft and now permanently hers, and Amara's purple butterfly clips still tangled in her curls. No makeup. No armor. The room went dead silent. She laid 3 things on the polished mahogany table. 1. A single sheet of paper, her immediate resignation as CEO. 2. A USB drive containing every document proving she had been born baby girl Vaughn, March 17, 1991, Piedmont Hospital, Atlanta, Georgia. 3. A photograph, Isaiah, Amara and Naomi on the shelter bleachers, laughing over chocolate chip pancakes someone had smuggled in. Then she pressed play on the remote. A pre-recorded video filled the screen. Naomi sitting on Isaiah's worn couch between him and Amara, speaking directly to the camera. "My name is Naomi Vaughn Vanderbilt. 8 days ago, a storm and a little girl in unicorn slippers changed my life forever. I'm not perfect. I have spent 34 years building walls instead of bridges. But I have learned that love is not a liability. It is the only thing that has ever made me rich. To the press, this is my family. Isaiah Thompson is the strongest, kindest man I have ever known. Amara Thompson is the child of my blood and the daughter of my heart. We are not your headline. We are not your scandal. We are private citizens asking for peace. To my former board, thank you for the empire. I'm trading it for a 2-bedroom on Cascade Avenue and Sunday pancakes. Best deal I ever made." She ended with Amara waving at the camera. "Bye, mean people. Come over for pancakes if you say sorry." The video cut to black. Naomi looked around the stunned table. Any questions? There were none. By 8:30 a.m. the video was live on every platform she still controlled. By 9 o'clock it had 40 million views. By 10 o'clock the tone of the internet flipped. People weren't laughing at the Ice Queen anymore, they were crying with her. Stock price dipped then steadied. The board accepted her resignation with a strangely respectful silence. She walked out of the building for the last time with nothing but her phone, her keys and Isaiah's hand in hers. He had been waiting in the lobby, Amara on his hip, both of them dressed in their Sunday best for no reason other than it felt right. Amara reached for Naomi the second she appeared. Naomi took her, kissed her forehead, and the 3 of them left the tower together, paparazzi flashing behind them like a storm they no longer feared. 2 weeks later. The new normal looked nothing like the old one and everything like home. Naomi sold the penthouse, paid off Isaiah's debts, put the rest into a trust for Amara's future, and moved into 3B with 1 suitcase and a heart wide open. The apartment was cramped, loud, perfect. Mornings were chaos and syrup. Isaiah flipping minion pancakes while Naomi attempted braids and Amara narrated everything at top volume. Afternoons, Naomi worked from the kitchen table, building a foundation to fund dance studios for little black girls who couldn't afford lessons, fulfilling Lauren's dream and her own redemption in one stroke. Evenings were porch swings and fireflies. Isaiah went back to his EMT shifts once the media lost interest. The daycare welcomed Amara back with open arms and a new security policy. One Saturday in June they drove to Tybee Island, the same beach where Lauren's photograph had been taken 17 years earlier. Amara ran screaming into the waves while Isaiah and Naomi walked barefoot at the edge of the water. Naomi carried a small wooden box. When they reached the spot where the sunset painted everything gold, she opened it. Inside, 2 silver bracelets engraved with tiny crescent moons. She fastened one around Amara's wrist first. The little girl squealed and ran back to splash. Then Naomi turned to Isaiah, eyes shining. "I had them made from Lauren's old charm bracelet," she said softly. "The one she wore in the picture. I found it in the things her mother saved." Isaiah's breath caught. Naomi took his hand and slid the second bracelet onto his wrist. "So we all carry her with us. Always." He pulled her close, kissed her slow and deep while the ocean roared its approval. That night they sat on the sand, Amara asleep between them under a shared blanket. Naomi rested her head on Isaiah's shoulder. "I used to think love was something you acquired," she whispered. "Like companies. Like power. Turns out it's something you surrender to." Isaiah threaded their fingers together, moonlight glinting off matching crescent moons. "I used to think I had to do it all alone," he answered. "Turns out all I had to do was open the door in an old college t-shirt." They laughed quietly, the sound mixing with the waves. Amara stirred, mumbled in her sleep, "Love you, Mommy. Love you, Daddy." Naomi's eyes filled. She pressed a kiss to Amara's braids, then to Isaiah's lips. "I love you both," she said, voice steady and sure. "More than every headline I'll never read again. More than every dollar I'll never miss. You are my whole world." Isaiah pulled them closer, the three of them a single shape against the endless sea. Behind them, the beach held their footprints, 3 sets, side by side, leading forward. The tide would wash them away by morning. But the love, the fierce, unexpected, hard-won love, would stay forever. If this story made you feel anything, hope, tears, belief in second chances, drop a heart in the comments and tell me the moment that hit you hardest. And if you've ever been surprised by love when you least expected it, share your story below. You never know who needs to read it today. Subscribe for more stories that remind us love always finds a way home.